Can I ask you something to the supportive part?
Yes.
Because I think I had an issue in a past relationship that I was like, I'm actually a very supportive girlfriend or woman or whatever. But I think at a certain point when you see something goes in a wrong way and that your partner is doing or making bad decisions, are you allowed as a woman to tell him?
Yes, I think you communicate, but I think it's how you communicate. That's the difference.
Okay, but what if you communicated in a good way, in a very passive way, but he still sticks to his decision?
So this is where I would say, we'll cover this in steps. One, and I say this to everyone, you should always communicate with your partner first. Let me just clarify that for everyone. You should always communicate with your partner. I think that's the biggest failure I think most people do. Most people run to their girlfriends. Most people run to other people. Most people don't even talk about it, their feelings. They just kind of bury them up, and then they're just like, I'm not going to talk about it. And then they just hide it in their mind. Now, I think the foundation to make anything work relationships, raising children, like communication is going to always be that one big foundation. There's another one, but we'll just talk about communication. Like that's just like a very big fundamental. Now, here's the thing. Everyone comes from different walks in life. So you have to understand and take the time to actually learn and understand your partner and how to best communicate with them. I think as men, we do a pretty good job of learning how to communicate with women. That's how we get laid. That's just the truth. We understand. You have to say, women fall in love with what they hear. And here's the truth to a certain extent.
But you know what? Women are much more likely to change for the men who they have,
I don't know. I don't think I always agree with that. I think maybe a decade ago, yes. Now, no.
I still see it a lot.
I think maybe we'll leave that one alone. How about that? Because, but I would say at the end of the day, I think to talk about the communicating with a person that may be hard to communicate, you have to really take the time to understand and learn them and how to communicate with them. From there, once you kind of understand their communication style, then you can kind of maneuver in and say, hey, like, I'm seeing this happen. You really don't need to do this, like, and then communicate that message. Now, here's what I would say. Like, if you're my daughter or if you're just like in general to a woman that asks me for advice, if you're with a man and you have done everything possible to communicate with him and you're not married to him, then I would say leave. That would be the answer. But when I say do everything, I think a lot of the time women do not understand the amount of effort that it actually takes to have a successful relationship. And I only say that because I think a lot of people have a very Disney fairy tale-ish kind of view of relationships. But if you ask anyone who's been married for a very long time, it takes a lot of work. And I think that's the reality. I think a lot of people want the benefits of marriage, but they don't want the responsibility. You don't want to be responsible for another person. You don't want to be responsible for their wants, needs, and desires. I think a lot of times men are willing to take up the wants and needs, desires of their partners. I mean, like, I think I know a lot of men who are willing to do that, but they still get shit on. You look at the divorce rates, all those things like that, like, it is very apparent that there is a disconnect, i.e. the connection, between men and women when it comes to relationships. Now, I'm not saying like every guy is like a great communicator and some are really shitty. I think this is where I would say the other element comes in, growth mindset. I think both people have to be willing to grow in a relationship and grow together. If you're not doing that, then it won't work.
I agree. I mean, I think a huge part of communication is not only to communicate, but also to show understanding, to at least try to understand your partner, even if they have a different opinion to yours. And you just, listen to them, listen to their arguments, and just try to understand them. But this is something which also is a thing which is not very, very common anymore, to show understanding for your partner and everything like that.
Yeah. So let's kind of go back to the original question with morality. How do people know what's morally right or wrong?
Well, the best way to know it is to learn it from your parents, right? If your parents teach you morality.
Yeah, I would. So yeah.
I mean, I learned it. At least I learned it from my parents, or I think I learned it from my parents. I automatically knew or know what is right and what.
I do believe people, to an extent, have an inherent knowing what's right and what's wrong. I think that a lot of times that changes with as you get older. People start to lie to themselves and rationalize like the right things they do and the wrong things they do to make themselves like kind of feel good and protect their like inner ego. But I think for the most part, when you look at kids, they know when they do something wrong. Like they will like, I didn't do it. It's like, you know, you did it. You just did it. You know, you're wrong and you're running away. Like, you know, it's a problem. But when I talk about morality, I find it very interesting that I think people are coming back to wanting more morality. When we look at the U.S., morality is very heavily influenced by the church. Now, a lot of people don't like the church. When you look at the Bible, I mean, it pretty outlines like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Now we're entering into this age where we've kind of like thrown out morality. And to me, what I've seen, there's a lot of chaos. So
it depends on what your definition of morality is, like, and what you consider being morality. For me, it is just, you know, a basic thing of not hurting anyone when it comes to.
That's impossible, though. Like, let's say you need.
Yes, but it is a different way. If you do it in a good, you can do it in a good way, and in a way that you have done anything to prevent that, or you can do it in a bad way and intentionally go forward and hurting people.
Yeah, I think there's like a level of where you can have malicious intent. So let's say a guy comes and he's like, I think it's impossible to completely not hurt someone, because you can have, let's say a man comes up to you, Cookie, and he's like, Cookie, you're the woman for me. I'm going to bare my soul. You probably at least gotten one DM from a guy who's like, I can take you away. I'll give you everything, give you the world. And then you tell him no. You just hurt him. So that's why I say, like, morality.
Well, it depends on how far you are in this relationship, you know? I mean, of course it takes a while to consider if you are really willing to take this to another step, or if you are really willing to commit.
So then
so you first have to get to know a person before you know that if he's compatible or not.
So is it that people are basically staying right in that first talking phase, having a bunch of sex and just hanging out?
Who said sex isn't good?
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, I'm a man. I like sex. But I think it's funny how, like, I think we're getting into this. It's people are ending up in a loop. And I think a lot of people are ending up in loops. They're ending up in a bunch of talking phases, a bunch of situationships, all these different things that are occurring. But I think it's because my theory is I think we've really gotten away from the identity of what, I'm not saying gender roles are for everyone. I think everyone should choose what they want. And I'm not saying gender roles in the sense that women should be like stuck in the household or anything like that. But there are certain things that men want in women and women want in men. And I don't think we're doing each other thing. We're not doing the things that each other wants. And I think a lot of times people are refusing to do those things. So I think, let's say as a woman, you probably want a man to be loyal to you, right? Like, sexually included into that, but you want him to be, let's say, like, in an ideal world, you want, I know it's like crazy to even think a man could be loyal sexually. Let's just play the game.
I mean, you know that I'm really very diplomatic when it comes to that, but I think it is, I want a man who's just honest to me, you know, about his feelings, about his intentions, about also his desires, what he needs, what he wants. And then we can always find a way to work around that, you know, what he wants.
All right, fine.
And I'm always supportive, and, you know, I always think about new ideas and stuff like that and whatever. Yeah. I just think as you said, it's a huge communication thing, you know, like, you have to communicate. But what I don't like is someone who keeps everything on the low, you know, or maybe someone who's not even able to talk to me because maybe he's afraid to talk to me about certain things. And I think you have to, you know, you have to be able to talk to your partner, and you also need to feel safe to talk to your partner. And I think this is a huge thing. People don't feel safe to talk to their partner about certain things, certain topics. Especially sexual desires.
We'll go into like talking about different relationship types, but I do think I get what you're saying as far as like honesty being a really big focal point.
Yeah, if you want to call that loyalty, then yeah, that's actually my kind of loyalty.
So let's just say honesty is like we'll say that's one of your big moral values that you want. Okay. I don't want to we can kind of stay away from, I think personally for me, I think like a lot of the morality and the issues is that there's nothing people believe in. And when you only really believe in yourself, why are you gonna place another person's needs above your own? Like, if you are the most important person in your universe, why are you gonna put someone's needs above your own?
Is that a question or?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of a question. It is. Like, what's the answer behind that? What motivates people to be better?
I'm not really selfish.
I'm not saying you
So-
are, but I'm saying, like, what motivates, let's say people down the random street, what motivates them to be better?
I
It's
think
religion.
if you get something back from your partner, then you should automatically be motivated to do something for them as well, right?
To me, it sounds more like religion.
What?
I think religion motivates us to be better than ourselves.
For real?
I do think so.
That's the only thing?
I think religion keeps us out of like sin. I think it keeps the family unit together. I mean, if you look at the Bible, it talks about not going out and chasing after the flesh, like husband and wife, like head of the house, the husband's like the head of the household, like, you know, take care of your wife, and your wife take care of your husband, you know, raise your children to be wise. Like, I mean, it's kind of a playbook to not do the crap that we're doing.
Okay, if you follow the things that are written in the Bible, then yes, but I've also seen a lot of Christian people living the exact opposite.
I'm not saying that people don't mess up whatsoever. I'm not saying that. But I think that in society, if we're talking about in society as a whole, I think it's a very interesting topic that people are wanting more morality. But it's like people also, the problem with morality is that you also have to, I would say, I don't want to say tame your flesh, because it's not really like a very well-known way to say it that people would actually understand, but people have to actually have discipline. And I don't think there's a lot of discipline right now. I think people just do what they want, and they do what feels good, and they don't care about the consequences, but the consequences are still there.